about a specific theme which works all throughout the first epistle of John. It is called the three tests of John, or the threefold test of John. Today, we're going to dig into the second and the third epistles of John as a whole, because they're very, very small, as we're going to see. And I'm making a panoramic view, and I'm going to talk about the topics that I think they're worth to expose here. Okay. First of all, I'd like you to meet some friends of mine. These guys. Some of you are known faces, some of them are known, but the point is, those guys, they identify themselves according to their zodiac signs. Zodiac signs. I don't even know the names in English. Do you? Virgo, Gemini, Taurus. Anyway, we don't believe that. Okay, but we're just saying that some people, you go to their Instagram and they say, well, I'm Virgo, I'm this, I'm that. So they identify themselves according to that symbol, that identity, which is the zodiac sign. Others, they don't like zodiac signs, but they love Harry Potter. And so they always are drawing attention to each their house is. So my house is Slytherin, or it's Hufflepuff, or it's Gryffindor, or it's Ravenclaw. My house is Ravenclaw. And they identify themselves according to their Harry Potter house. Other guys, they don't like science, they don't like Harry Potter, but they're very into politics, So they're always discussing and debating. In the US, you have basically just two parties, two political parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. I don't know why I'm a Democrat here. They put me as a Democrat and Gustavo as a Republican. But the point is, these guys, they very much identify themselves to their political position, to their political party they are affiliated to. In Brazil, we have our own, and anyway. So it's a matter of identification with the party. Others, they don't like politics, they don't like fiction, but they love football. Not soccer, football.
Yes.
They love football. Some are Fluminense and some are wrong. So in football, you have all these rivalries, rivalidades. And people sometimes struggle, sometimes they manage to be friends. I don't know how they can be friends, but somehow they manage to. And that's it. Now, there's a detail. Let's imagine a game played by the Brazilian team, which is the English way to say Seleção Brasileira. The Brazilian team is going to compete against the Germans. We don't have good memories of games like that. But let's suppose we idealize a game like that. Well, in that kind of game, something magical happens, which is this. Every Brazilian, as different as one might be from the other, they always unite themselves because they are there to support a greater cause. Which cause? Support their country, in this case, Brazil. So even a tricolor and a flamenguista would unite only to support Brazil. So they have differences. They don't ignore those differences. But now they just forget them because they have something greater to support, and they look at what unites them and not to what divides them. We're going to talk about that more later. But to begin, as we said, we can have many levels of identification with all sorts of things that we associate ourselves with. But how can we know which level is ultimate? I mean, we spoke about football, Fluminense in Brazil, so that's a level of identification. But Brazil, so the country, it's a level higher. Is there a level which is highest? I mean, how we can distinguish the levels, the different levels of identification? And that's a question. Do you think there's something that can unite people no matter what divides them? Do you think there may be something so high, that all the other differences and all the other divisions, they won't matter because of this specific thing which unites them. So the ultimate identification of a person that the person can have. If so, if such a thing exists, what it is. So we continue. We're going to talk about now the second and the third epistles of John, of the Apostle John. This is John. Believe me, this is John. Or a representation of him. Those two books, they're the smallest books of the whole Bible. If we make a rank of the books of the New Testament, the small to the biggest one, we have 3rd John at first place with 219 words, 2nd John 245 words, and Philemon right after, it's almost 100 words. It has almost um, more 100 words. English is hard. And then you have Obadiah and Jude. The whole Bible, not only the New Testament. Those words are not in English, they're not in Portuguese, they are in Greek. So we can know the precise size of the books. Another thing we should know is that those books, for centuries, they were considered anti-legomena, which is a word in Greek that means disputed, or literally spoken against. Against, anti-legomena, spoken. So lego is the verb speak, anti, against, so spoken against in Greek. Why? Because some people, they spoke against the inclusion of those books, of those 3 books, within the New Testament canon, within our Bibles. Today, that matter for us is very well resolved. You know, our Bible has 66 books, 39 in the Old Testament, 27 in the New Testament, and that's it. But the Bible, as we have today, it did not came to us from the sky, like divinely given. No, the church had to choose and had to select what books should be in the Bible. So some people said that they should be in the Bible, like this one. There's a book which is not in the Bible, but many Christians said that it should be in the Bible. However, it's not. Now, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, only 2nd and 3rd John, only those 2 epistles. A lot of people would say that they should not be. A lot of people spoke against them. Why? For first, there is no explicit identification of who the writer is. He just says he's the elder, as we'll see later. And second reason is that they're too small. And because they're too small, you can't make parallels between them and other writings, so you can see, well, they're really similar. You can't. You have not enough material to do so. 1st John has no identification, but it has a lot of internal evidence because you can compare 1st John with other books. So that's okay. This book has no identification and you can't make enough parallels. However, sources as trustworthy as Irenaeus, which is a Christian from the 2nd century, as I said that's Athanasius. He was the disciple of Polycarp, who was the disciple of John, so he's a very trustworthy person, and he suggests that John really wrote those 2 books, so that's why we think that really was John who wrote them. So let us begin the reading of the second letter, the second epistle. The elder to the elect lady and her children, whom I love in truth, and not only I, but also all who know the truth, because of the truth that abides in us, and will be forever, and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace will be with us from God the Father and from Jesus Christ the Father's Son, in truth and love. We're dividing by parts, and so always look at what is highlighted in red. First, the elder. What on earth is that? In the context of the New Testament, basically, the church, as the apostles established it, has 2 offices. 2 offices. The presbyter bishop, which is one and the very same thing, and deacon. So a church has a presbyter or a bishop, which is the same thing, and a deacon. Two offices. Presbítero, bispo, and diácono. Later, not much later, but later, after the Bible was written, some people were already making a distinction between presbyter and bishop. Therefore, you had something like first rank deacon, second rank presbyter, and third rank bishops. It is today what you see in the Catholic Church. Catholic Church has deacons, has priests, and priest is just an abbreviation of presbyter in Greek, presbyteros. Anyway, so deacon, Catholic Church, deacon, presbyter, and bishop. Then you have the archbishop, and you go levels up and up, infinite, till you get to the Pope. But even Protestant churches, they have this threefold offices, the threefold office system at the church, like the Anglican Church, which has also deacon, priest or pastor, and bishop, archbishops, and so on. Even a Presbyterian church, which is more like ours, it does not have bishops, but it has deacon, and it has presbyter, and it has pastor. And pastor would be like the bishop, but they don't call bishops. It's kind of complicated. But the Baptist church is more simple. We indeed have two offices. We just have deacon and pastor, and that's it. And there are debates about that, but anyway, that's our position. Two offices, as we understand that it was in the New Testament. Here, in English, we read elder, but in Greek, it's presbyteros, which means presbyter, although in English we see elder. In Portuguese, we see presbítero, so it's more faithful to the Greek. They modify for reasons, don't know why, but it's presbyter. So John is saying, well, dear presbyter to the elect lady and her children. He does not say John, he says presbíteros, the elder. So that this was a title so evident in reference to him that he would use the word presbyter, and they would automatically think of John, because John was the elder, and so he did not have to write his name. It was enough to write the elder, because that was his identification to that church. He continues to say, to the elect lady and her children. But the elect lady, is that a person? Is that a woman, a lady, a senhora? Some people and some trustworthy people also, they speculated that indeed it could be a real person. Some said that it could be Martha, which is Mary's sister, and some said that it could be Mary, the mother of Jesus, so that John was writing the second and the third epistle to the mother of Jesus. However, that was not a well-spread theory, and well, let's just take a grasp at this. Here, you have the personification of the United States and Great Britain in the figure of Uncle Sam and Britannia. So you could treat the country as a person, as that famous pamphlet. I want you, Uncle Sam said. I want you. It's not a person who wants you; it's the country. But to give another kind of appeal, he would personify the country as a person. And you had liberty. Liberty is just an idea, is an idea. And first, there in the French Revolution, in the 18th century, you had that famous painting of Liberty, which was struggling. She stopped with him. That was Liberty, the woman. And the Americans, they did something similar. They built a statue in New York, which they call Lady Liberty, which is the personification of liberty. Here it's Lady Liberty. Here it's the elect lady. So it's one and the very same thing. John is also making personification of the church, and that's not something new. That's something that John also does in another book of his, which is the book of Revelation, as he says in the chapter 21. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So again, the church is treated as a person. And again, in his second epistle and his third epistle, he's doing the same thing. The elect lady as a church. Grace, mercy, and peace will be with us from God the Father and from Jesus Christ the Father's Son, in truth and love. What is that? It is salvation. So, salvation or greeting, which is the same thing. Greeting means saudações, something like that. And he's very similar to Paul. And it's funny because Paul is a person and John is a different person. But uh, they already had this convention of what a Christian foundation should look like. So let us see how Paul writes. Grace to you and peace from our God, our Father, and the Lord Jesus Christ. Grace is Haris, peace Irene. Haris hemin ka Irene apoteo patros ka kyrio hemonius Christos. That's the Pauline salvation. Johannine salvation is very similar. Grace, mercy, and peace will be with us from God the Father and from Jesus Christ the Father's Son, in truth and love. Patterns we see grace and peace in both, and John adds mercy. So what is grace? And that's funny. In the Roman Empire, which they were in the Roman Empire, and people there they would salute one another with this word, hiding. Hiding meant greetings. So saudações, Pedro, saudações, Gustavo, greetings you all. Paul says, well, the Greeks they say hiding. I'm gonna do different. I'm gonna say Haris. So I'm not saying greeting only. I'm saying grace. I'm going to make my salvation as wishing for grace to the person I'm speaking with. Used to be hiding, now it's Haris. Peace. Peace, that's because Jewish people, they would always salute each other with shalom. Shalom. Shalom in Hebrew. The equivalent is eirene in Greek. So grace, it's the Christian salvation. Peace is the Jewish salvation. He's trying to mix them both to say that all the idea that the church is the new Israel and all kinds of stuff. Then he adds mercy, eleos, in Greek. That's it. I'm saying that to you, so you can see that each word has a reason to be there, you know. And we read and we just pass by it without noticing, but each word has a deep meaning. Grace. When you read grace, he's saying, well, we're not like the Romans, although we try to do things that look like what they do, but we Christianize things. So Paul, he's creative. He's really, really creative. He takes things that exist in the world and he does not reject them, but he rather transforms them. He Christianizes them. And peace is to say that we come from the Jewish, you know, and we still talk like Jewish to say where we came from. Another curiosity, okay, Gracifies at our Baptist church, so that is why we say it. You can always raise your hands if you want. Okay. Another thing to notice is this. That's funny. That's really funny. When Paul is saying, he says, well, grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. So Paul is wishing something, as if he was saying, may grace and may peace be with you. Well, I would wish that grace and peace was with you. That's what I long for. But not John. John says, grace, mercy, and peace will be with us from God the Father, Jesus, and truth and love. So Paul is not affirming that grace and peace will be with you. But John is affirming, he's being categorical as to say that grace, peace, and mercy will be with us. He's not only wishing, he's not saying, may grace, and may mercy, and may peace will be with us. But they will, they necessarily will. Why? Well, we know from his first epistle that he's writing to people who already believe. When he writes, when he wrote the Gospel of John, he said, I'm writing this so you will believe. When he writes the first epistle, he says, I'm writing this to you who already believe, to you who already have mercy and grace and peace. The same session, he says, the elect lady and her children, whom I love in truth, and not only I, but also all who know the truth, because of the truth that abides in us and will be with us forever. Repairing truth, the word truth. He's saying he loves in truth all who know the truth because of truth. He makes this great centrality of truth. And he says he loves them in truth because of truth. What that should point to us? This, that his parameter wasn't to love those who loved him, or those who were blood relatives to him, or those who had a similar temperament, but those who shared the same truth. So his parameter as to whom he was going to love as siblings, as brothers and sisters in Christ, was those who shared the same truth with him. It's normal for us to love those who have more things in common with us. I mean, look at your friends today. There may be someone who you study with, someone from college, or you have studied with in school, or they are your family, or you met them because you had a common interest and you began talking. You have something common, so you started loving each other and you made a friendship with that person because you had something common. Now, there's nothing more in common to have than Christ. If we have Christ in common, we have all in common. And that has to be greater than all the difference we may have. There are lots of things which can unite us. So we and Dede and Leticia, we all study at UFIS. Only us. You too? IFIS. Great. We studied UFIS. So we have a lot of common subjects. We have a lot of common problems. And we have an union between us, because of that. And I have with the most of you because we are at the same church, and with others because of age. But if it wasn't for any of that, I should have a strong bond, a strong friendship with all of you, and I should really love you. Only because you're Christians, like me. Only because you share the same truth as I do. As Alford puts, the communion of love is as wide as the communion of faith. So as far as my faith goes, this far my love should go. So sure, I should love all the people indistinctly. But this special love, this love I have for a brother and a sister, I should be for those who share the same faith as I do. And Kierkegaard, which was a Danish philosopher, he has this sentence, this quotation of him. For love is exultant when it unites equals, but it is triumphant when it makes that which was unequal equal in love. So then John says, well, people will look at you and they will know you are my disciples because you love each other. Because people who follow Jesus, they're not equal to each other. You can look at the apostles, Some were enemies to the Roman Empire. Some were friends to the Roman Empire, worked for it. But they were disciples together. Why? Because they had Christ in common. And the world knows that. So when the world looks at us and they see we love each other, although we may have nothing in common, they know, well, there must be something which is real, because that does not come from them or from things that are common to them. So it must come from something other. And they found not Christ when they look at us. Continuing, verses 5 to 7. And now I ask you, dear lady, not as though I were writing you a new commandment, but the one we have had from the beginning, that we love each other, that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk according to his commandments. This is the commandment, just as you have heard from the beginning, so that you should walk in it. Some translations say, which is to live in that love. For many deceivers have gone out into the world, those who do not confess the coming of Jesus Christ in the flesh. Such a one is a deceiver and the Antichrist. such they are. Does it remind you of anything, of something that, again, we should love one another, and this is love, and we walk according to His commandments? For many deceivers have gone out of the world, who do not confess the coming of Jesus in the flesh. Those three things, they remind you of something. I guess they do. Again, we have the theme of the three tests of John, which John does not speak about exhaustively here, as he does in his first epistle, but he's remembering it. And you can already see, therefore, a connection between the second epistle and the first epistle. You don't have much internal evidence, as I said, but you have some. I mean, this way of talking is very, very similar to the way that John is talking in his first epistle. I've made a whole sermon on that, so I won't say a lot more things. But I want to make a commentary, which is this. Look how John puts it. Well, there is another commandment, which is to love one another. And what is love? To follow God's commandments. And the commandment is this, that we should walk in love. Repair. Love, commandment. Love, commandment. Love, commandment. I bring you a new commandment, that we love one another, and love is this, that we should walk according to His commandments, and the commandment is to love. You see what He's doing with this. It's like He's playing with us. You should love, and you should follow, and you should follow because you love, and you should love because you follow. So He's trying to make a point. It's one and the very same thing. Today we have a discourse, a mostly worldly discourse, about all you need is love. All you need is love. And that's true, all you need is love. But you cannot have love without obedience. Because to love is to obey His commandments. And the commandment is to love. And if you love, you will obey the commandments, and so on. Sometimes you find the opposite discourse, that, if I'm a moral person, I can live in my own square, and I don't need to love others because I'm clean, I do my part, and they should do their part. But no, if you follow the commandments, you should love because love is a commandment. So you can't say you follow the commandments and you not love. As John Stott puts, we are not saved by obeying the law. We are free. However, we're not free to break the law, but instead to fulfill it. I'm not saved because I obey the law. Okay, so you don't have to obey the law to be saved. You are saved by grace, through faith, and that's all. But now that you're saved, now that you're free from being saved by the law, you're free to obey the law. You obey the law because you were saved by grace, and you're not saved because you obey the law. I hope that's clear already to us. Following, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him into your house or give him any greeting, for whoever greets him takes part in his wicked works. Again, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, so the Christian teaching which he is exposing, do not receive him. So that's the subject of hospitality. Let's give a context. Today, if you travel to Domingos Martins, you can stay at a hotel. So you don't need to call, hey, pastor of PB Domingos Martins, I need a place to stay. No, you can find a place to stay. That is okay. But that time, no, because two things. Places to stay, they were extremely expensive. And Christians, they were persecuted people. They usually didn't have a lot of money. But even if they did, those places to stay, they were known for two things: dirtiness and promiscuity. They were really dirty places. You could become sick just by going there. And they were places of a lot of promiscuity. It was not a place adequate for a Christian to be. So missionaries really needed hospitality from local Christians. They really needed a place to stay. However, even though it was that hard, John is saying that they shouldn't receive some people. But isn't that weird? I mean, aren't we supposed to love everyone and all of that? So don't we have to be tolerant to all people and receive all people? What's wrong with John? Well, it happened that John was talking about people who spread false teaching and not naive. Naive is innocent. People who were deceived by some false teaching which they could not endorse. So he's not saying, well, if a guy is not completely orthodox, you shouldn't even talk to him. He's not saying that. He's saying that some people they come as with the the aim, the objective of them is to teach false doctrine and to spread false doctrine about God and about Jesus, and you cannot endorse them. You cannot receive a person like that because it will seem like you are supporting what they say and what they teach and everything else. Also, when he says, "Oh, I don't want you to receive those people in your house," well, those times you did not have temples like this one. We did not have PBs or EPBs or anything. You had house churches, so churches they were united in houses. So he may be saying simply that you should not receive those people in your churches as someone who is going to teach, someone who's going to preach. Because to receive someone at one's house, therefore, would be to receive that person in its church. And so therefore to bless his teaching because you're receiving him at the church in a position of authority, an authority of a false gospel. Alexander, he says this, the tolerance we're so proud of is in reality indifference to truth. So that we should observe, really, who we hear and who we receive and who we put our blessings upon, because today is the time of tolerance. So you should listen to everyone and you should receive everyone. And if this guy has a word to say, you should give him the word and the microphone without caring to what it is. But that tolerance is intolerance to truth, intolerance to people's spiritual health. Because if I let someone walk in here and teach you false doctrine, I don't know how your heart is. I don't know what you already know, and how are you going to receive the information? Because if I let him, if I let a person teach you a false gospel, you can believe the gospel, and you can lose your soul. You can lose your soul. So it is a really serious matter. That's why John is saying you should not receive those people at the church. Now, uh, out of curiosity, and to see that John is not alone in what he says, I'm going to talk about a document, a very important document, written in the first century. The Didache, or in Greek, or in English, they say Diraki, I think. In Portuguese, Didache. It is a catechism, so a document that it was written to the churches as a letter, and to teach Christians who were learning to be Christians yet. And it was written when the apostles were still alive. So it's really first-hand material. I have it in my hands. That's the whole writing of the Didache. It's really, really small, but it's a very important book. If you looked at some New Testaments from the first centuries, they had this book. We don't have today, and you don't have to assume that it's inspired by God, but it has good doctrine and explanations on some things, including hospitality. The whole chapter 11 is dedicated to hospitality. I brought a PDF so we can read. That's the whole chapter 11. It's very small. Concerning apostles and prophets, act according to the gospel's teaching. Receive every apostle as the Lord. He should not stay for more than a single day or 2 days if necessary. But if he remains for 3 days, he is a false prophet. When he leaves, let the apostle receive nothing except bread until he finds a place to stay. But if he asks for money, He's a false prophet. Do not test or judge any prophet who speaks in the Spirit. Every other sin will be forgiven, but this sin will not be forgiven. And not everyone who speaks in the Spirit is a prophet, but only he who follows the ways of the Lord. From his behavior, then,